Good morning. How you doing today? Patrick Peace here. I'm here with Daniel Dennett, trying to break the spell. How are you? I want to let you know that I've started editing my videos so I can go back and I can delete out all the hums and haws and pauses and expletives and things like that. So if you're watching it without it being edited, well, you're getting the raw version, I guess. Okay, so chapter 4 deals with roots of religion, is the title. And he talks about how religion may have arisen out of our treatment of the dead. Chapter 4 is rather inarticulate, inconsequential in my opinion. It's kind of boring, so you can skip chapter 4. Chapter 5 is called Religion, the Early Days. He talks about how language gives the ability to develop agent ideas that ascribe agency to inanimate things. Okay, interesting point. He says this is why apes don't have art, or obviously couldn't develop their own religion either. And then he says religion may have developed by how we perceive our earthly father. And he's kind of got the cart before the horse, but those are his main points in chapter 5. He starts to talk a bit like Dawkins in chapter 5, and in fact he even quotes him. So I'm going to pick up in chapter 5 called Religion, the Early Days, and I'm going to go to page 129, and I'm going to read you an important statement here. I'm going to change one word from the statement. He's talking about how mammals develop and how we develop a love for our parents and how they develop a love for us. And he's having a hard time explaining how it could be passed on through genes. So they're saying maybe it's culturally developed in each generation. It gets very fuzzy when they start to try and explain things that cannot be directly explained through Darwinian adaptive evolution, right? So they got to come up with other ideas to account for that, especially for something that is intelligent. They don't want to have anything intelligent, because if they admit something is development through the process of Darwinian adaptive evolution, you're left with intelligent design. So they got to stick with a non-intelligent design. They end up tripping over themselves. I know I didn't explain that as well as I could have, but I'll get back to it later. So on page 129, I'm going to change one word, right? He's talking about how infants develop and things like that. He says, here we go. We don't love babies and puppies because they're cute. Emphasis on the because they're cute. It's the other way around. We see them as cute. Emphasis on his, because God has designed us to love things that look like that. Let me repeat that again. We don't love babies and puppies because they're cute. It's the other way around. We see them as cute because God has designed us to love things that look like that. Now, for a lot of people, that would make a lot of sense. And that's not a statement you'd ever find in any of the four horsemen, Daniel Dennett included. You wouldn't find a statement like that. Of course not. What word did I change? Can you guess? Not hard to guess, right? The original statement, as printed in his book, it says, we don't love babies and puppies because they're cute. It's the other way around. We see them as cute because evolution has designed us to love things that look like that. Quite a big difference, right? I'm going to make a statement here that I believe is very, very important, and I want you to listen to me, whoever you might be, if you happen to be watching this. An atheist that believes in evolution is a theist. Did you hear that? An atheist that believes in evolution, and by evolution I'm talking about the Darwinian adaptive selection that goes all the way back to the primordial soup. That's what it has to be if that's what they're talking about. That's what their version of evolution is, right? Darwinian evolution. An atheist that believes in Darwinian evolution is a theist. What is a theist? Well, a theist is someone who believes in God, right? By their own language, by their own reasoning, by their own logic, they are simply replacing evolution with God. That is their God. It performs all the functions of God. It walks like God, talks like God. It's God, right? They want to keep it as obviously a non-animate, impersonal, unintelligent force, right? But they don't get the luxury of doing that, because otherwise they can't explain creation. They have to ascribe godly qualities to evolution. There's no way out of it. So think about that statement. I'm going to write it again later. I'll write it in the notes underneath, but I think it's important. Let's go again, and let's see what he quotes on the same theme in the same chapter from our friend Richard Dawkins, right? And here's the quote. It's at the beginning of chapter 131. He does a really poignant description of a relationship with his daughter, which I'm going to put in a separate message, but I'm going to skip over that for now. The quote from Dawkins is, actually it's bad grammar to start with, but let's do the same exercise, right? God builds child brains with a tendency to believe whatever their parents and tribal elders tell them. God builds child brains, it's bad grammar, it should be children's brains. God builds children's brains with a tendency to believe whatever their parents and tribal elders tell them. Well, obviously we know that the framework for the relation between a child and his parents is a reflection of God's relationship to us. We know that, and so the statement makes sense. But guess what word I changed? Right. Okay, let's do it again from how it was actually written. Natural selection builds child brains with a tendency to believe whatever their parents then tells them. Are you starting to get what I'm getting at here? What these people are kicking against? They're kicking against the reality that there's a God who loves us and cares about us. It may take a while to sink in, but if you don't get it, that's okay. There's got to be different views, right? And let's go this other one. Here we go. Page 134. It was important to believe that somebody somewhere who knows what's right is telling you. That was another phrase that jumped out at me. How am I doing for time? And then he starts to move into the, where are we here? If I can find it. I'm sorry. I can edit this part out later when I'm pausing. Explains what was useful to people, right? Randomness. He's talking about randomness, right? They want to have somebody somewhere to explain the unexplainable, and they ascribe that to evolution. He goes on. He starts to talk about the development of religion from folk religions, right? He says religion is like music. You started off with folk music, and then you had more sophisticated music. He says with religion, you had a time when there was no religions, and then there was folk religion, and then there was modern religions. Well, depends how you look at it. The first person that we're aware of that was given the gift of language, the logos, so that he could speak, relationship to God was immediate. It was important. In fact, it wasn't until later that people started to call on God, that God, the presence of God, became distant from the population of the earth. This is what we're taught. It's hard to understand where that's taught in ancient scripture, but it is taught there. Most people don't pick it up. I'm not going to go into that because that's for another video. And where else do we leave here? Then we move on. We have, in chapter 6, right? Called The Evolution of Stewardship, Folk Religion, right? And again, he starts to get into the eugenics. He starts to get into the Stalinist theorizing, which they all end up reaching at one point or another. especially Dawkins, he says that humans are crowding up the planet and monopolizing its resources. What is the result when people in leadership position read things like this and they take it to heart? They say, oh, humans are the problem. We have to get rid of the humans. There's too many people crowding up the planet. Do you see why we're in the predicament we are today? It's from this absolutely total onslaught of books like this, which are perpetrated as a final solution to shift the perception of the world to a worldview of atheism. This is their goal, right? Their solution is to get rid of all religions, right? That's their main goal. They think that's what's going to save the earth. But in the process of doing that, they have a lot of good reasons why they would want to get rid of specific aspects of religion which have afflicted specific people throughout history. I'm all for that. I get it. The unnecessary persecution, the unnecessary ignorance that have been caused by the failures of humankind are transcendent across all religions, all faiths, and all non-faiths, if you can describe something like that. The people that have done horrific things have been across the gamut of religious belief. Ask yourself this question: why did Christ heal people from whatever was afflicting them, spiritual, physical, or otherwise, each one individually? See, Christianity is not a group. That's not the message of Christianity. That's the message of preachers and religions. It says, join our group. That's not the message of Christianity. The message of Christianity is that as an individual, you can become better. You can gain a mental, physical, psychological healing on an individual one-to-one basis with God. That's what the message of Christianity is. Do you see that? Do you see how important that is? That you can get delivered from religion through Christ. And I'm hesitant even to mention his name, because as soon as you mention his name, people, they bristle at it. We won't have that man rule over us. No, that can't be true. Christ came, explained what God is like, and explained how you can connect with God on an individual level. Even people with the same illness, he didn't heal the same way. He met multiple people that were blind, and one person, he says, okay, you're blind, go do this. Another person, he says, you're blind, okay, now you can see, your faith healed you. You just did it by verbal. Another person said, okay, you go do this instruction. Every healing was different. Every healing was unique. Why? Because every human is unique. Why do we have individual fingerprints? Because we're unique. Humans aren't all like out of a cookie cutter. Oh, that's what that's what the future wants to have. The future wants to clone and just replicate those that are the intellectual elites. We don't need to have babies anymore. Don't need to have men and women. It'll be done in a lab, in a test tube. And I'm not saying anything about that moral or otherwise, but this is where you can see the thought process is going. The thought process is that, oh, religion has caused all the problems. Get rid of the humans, get rid of the religions at the same time, and we'll just remain as elites, and we can replicate ourselves over and over again, and we'll download the information from our past body into our new body, and we'll have our own eternal life with our own God of AI. It's a pretty scary outlook for the future of humanity, if you want to call it that, but it doesn't scare me in the fact that I know that God's in control. Christ said all power in heaven and earth is given to him, so he controls. And if it's another Tower of Babel and things get out of hand, he knows when to straighten things out, right? It's in his control. I trust him. I'm not getting overly paranoid about the future of the world. But it's important to see where the zeitgeist is going. It's important to see where the thought patterns of human beings are going. At the highest level, the intellectual elites, they call themselves. They call themselves brights, a stupid name, but that's what they call themselves. That's what Dennett calls himself. He says that they're above the naive and the unintelligent who actually believe in a God that can intervene in human affairs. They're saying that's an outgrowth of old folk religions, and it's just meaningless for them. And yet they are forced to ascribe the marvels of creation, which are intelligent. You either believe in intelligent design or non-intelligent. A baby robin that the mother makes a nest. How does it know to make the nest? That's intelligent design. It's not unintelligent. The bird is not stupid and randomly put a bunch of sticks together and hope that it helps the baby. No. And then there's different ones. Cuckoo bird, they call it stupid because it steals a place from other chicks, and on and on and on, and all the variations and all the examples that they tediously go through. They all love to go through sometimes they end up doing the same thing, and they all talk about the cargo religions that developed in the same place. They take the same story and take it out from somewhere else, right? The natural tendency within the human heart and mind to ascribe solutions to mystical forces. We know that's true. Well, that's why in the fullness of time, Christ came to explain what God is like. If he didn't come, we wouldn't have a clue. We'd still be trying to follow archaic laws of Moses. We'd still be trying to deal with Deuteronomy and Leviticus. We wouldn't be able to figure it out, right? What was told at that time was necessary for that time. Now we're in a new time. We're in the modern time. We're in a new dispensation, a new revelation, right? So it's very frustrating to read through this when they come out with phrases and terms which are obviously trying to explain something in a way that allows the intelligence, and they don't have an explanation for it, right? Page 170. Here's a quote. It was the blind, foresightless cleverness of what? Which ratified the free-floating rationale of this arraignment. He's talking about the domestication of sheep and sheepdogs and how they're able to, cooperate with each other and all these complex things that they discover in nature. You can pick 100 different ones, right? But to explain that, he says, it was the blind foresightness, yet cleverness, and fill in the blank, of Mother Nature. Oh, Mother Nature now, instead of evolution. And then apostrophe evolution. It was the blind, foresightless cleverness of Mother Nature, evolution, which ratified the free-floating rationale of this arrangement, which is a silly phrase to describe it like that. But they want to be eloquent and they want to, whatever, right? But there's bad grammar all through this thing. It was the blind, foresightless cleverness of Mother Nature. Do you see how they're trying to ascribe reality in a way that they can keep God out of the picture? They say, well, it's amazing what I'm seeing here. Well, it must be Mother Nature. You can't mention God. Oh no, that's out of bounds. That's out of bounds for an atheist. I could go into more detail, but I won't. For now, I'll just leave it. And I'm just going to repeat that statement that I made. An atheist that believes in evolution is really a theist. At the root of it. You can argue against it. Prove me wrong. They are atheists in their own right. They're theists in their own right, I should say. They just trip over how to explain it. That's all. That's all it is. Smoke and mirrors, man. Well, I'm getting through it. A lot of it is inconsequential. A lot of it's boring. Sorry about that, Dennett. But, I mean, come on. It's like friggin' 300 pages to get through. I pity the student that's got to go through this. But if you do, keep your head on straight. Keep your eyes straight ahead. And don't forget that the truth will always survive. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. I love you. Have a great day. Take care now. Bye-bye.